Okay, sorry, it's a bit loud, my mic there. We are starting. We're 15 minutes early. We're just tuning into the House before statements, and we might be an hour after as well, just to listen to some points of order and things like that. So it's going to be a bit of a longer stream today for this one.
Of our team of negotiators, including the
Prime Minister by name, so she knows that she's not to do that. The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek, and I would just encourage members to please not make any noise right now. The honourable member.
I'm sorry. I'll make sure that I do not have that in my notes in the future. Right. I was actually going to mention also the former Finance Minister and the wonderful job that she has done as well on the negotiations at that time. And I am sure she will be involved in the future as we renegotiate these agreements. But we knew that our ability to secure a new agreement, one that would not only preserve but enhance our trading relationships, was paramount to Canada's future. The negotiations were intense, and there were moments when it seemed as though our position would be tested to the limits. But as always, we stood firm in defense of Canadian workers as a united Canada. Farmers and businesses were heard and also respected as that negotiation went on. We ensured that the environment and labour standards were prioritized, and we secured a modernized trade agreement, the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, referred to as CUSMA. That is more than just a trade deal. It is a testament to our commitment to fair rules-based trade, critically important for our future and the future of the U.S. and for all of the people who work in both countries. The CUSMA agreement is a historic one that will benefit Canadians for generations to come, as we have seen. It preserves preferential access to the U.S. market while modernizing and expanding provisions on areas like digital trade, intellectual property, and dispute resolution. It strengthens protections for our cultural industries, ensures better access to U.S. agricultural markets, and provides new opportunity for Canadian businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. It is a deal that clearly works for Canada and has worked for Canada for many years. Now, some of my colleagues in the opposition may argue that the CUSMA is a result of a mere luck, or that it could have been negotiated differently, but they didn't appear at the time. But let's be clear, this agreement is the result of tireless, strategic negotiations led by this government. We could have chosen to back down, to accept a bad deal, or not a deal at all. But that is not the Canadian way and was not in the best interests of Canadian businesses. But that was never an option for consideration. We knew what was at stake, and we understood that Canada's future was clearly on the line. Our negotiating team, led by our former Finance Minister, stood firm and delivered. That is what the Liberal government does. We stand up for Canada and Canadian interests, even when the road ahead is certain and challenging. Colleagues, the Liberal Party has a proven track record when it comes to ensuring that Canada's interests are protected on the world stage, particularly in relation to the United States. We understand the complexities of this.
Okay, so just to refresh, we are 11 minutes before question period. Obviously, we get statements first. So they're just talking on a sub-amendment to an amendment. And it's just some Liberal MP talking. It's nothing really interesting here for a bit. We might actually watch a few clips of other things before we come back to the House. Let me just see if there's anything good.
That are just a few of the other areas where cooperation with the U.S. is essential. And in each of these areas, we have consistently demonstrated the ability to act in the best interest of all Canadians. On security, Canada and the United States share one of the closest and most comprehensive defense relationships in the world. Our partnership through NORAD ensures that our skies are protected, and we work side by side to combat threats like terrorism and organized crime. Our intelligence sharing agreements ensure that we are prepared for any security challenge and we have consistently stood together in support of peace and stability around the globe. On the environment, we share an obligation to protect our natural shared resources. We have committed to working closely with the U.S. on initiatives to combat climate change, reduce carbon emissions, and ensure that both our countries transition to a greener, more sustainable future. Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment on behalf of our trade and all of our colleagues.
Great speech. Great speech.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The honour for Timmins James Bay.
Speaker,
Not Kevin.
we're talking about trade, and yet we see that the Conservatives are
Okay,
acting
it's not
like
Kevin,
sock
it's Angus.
puppets for the narcissist in Mar-a-Lago. They'll repeat any falsehood that he says because they think it'll score them points. We need a vision of a nation at this time that stands taller than this high school cafeteria juvenile behavior, because the threat of 25% tariffs are very, very serious.
Yep.
So our leader has offered the very challenged front bench the issue of a war room, of bringing together business leaders, labor, leaders from across the country, so that we have a unified position, because otherwise we are standing here looking like fools while the guy down in Mar-a-Lago is pushing us around. I'd like to ask my honourable colleague what she thinks.
Good question. The honourable Humber River Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague for that question. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that my honourable colleague has contributed tremendously to this House. He has made the debates in this House very interesting, quite comical at many times. Certainly we have put together the Canada-US team of negotiators that will be working today already 18 hours a day on a variety of different areas of strength that we have, of opportunities that
flipping
we
your
will have
papers
to
on the mic.
negotiate further with them.
Holy
we
crap,
have
she's-
a lot of positive things that we have to offer, and
Jeez.
we know how to retaliate when necessary. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for her speech. I enjoyed serving with her in the Trade Committee. We talk about what Canada needs when it comes to trade. We talk about what is leverage or strength, and we talk often on this side about the weakness that comes from this government and this Prime Minister and taking on a very strong American counterpart. And when we look at that, we look at three things that we think we need to see right away. Number one is to axe the carbon tax, which is putting undue burden on a lot of our businesses, making them uncompetitive. Number two is to scrap the cap on emissions in oil and gas, which right now is our number one export and of course drives growth into Canada. And number three is to make sure we're Canada first. Canada first when it looks at defending our borders. Canada first when it comes to meeting our 2% NATO commitment, which builds up our military for us. Does the member agree that we need to look at Canada first for all Canadians for always? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For Humber River Black Creek.
I want to begin by thanking my colleague, who's the Vice Chair of International Trade, is doing a fine job. We work well together. At the end of the day, it is about Canada first all the time for all of us. All of us in this House has the same destination as to make sure we're doing things. Now, how the Liberal Party of Canada, when it comes to the whole issue of climate change, we have a plan. I would ask anybody to look at the news, even last night, in spite of all the other things that were on the news. And we talked about around the world the amount of destruction that was happening because of climate change. And I believe we have a path forward that will work to try to change the conditions that the world is facing.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her speech. I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to wish everyone a happy Christmas. But her speech is important because 80% of our exports to the U.S. are raw materials they need for transformation. Can this be a key to invest in raw material transformation? I would like to see this happen near mines in my region with respect to strategic minerals. Also, in other areas, we can transform our wood instead of just sending softwood lumber to the U.S. It would create wealth and protect our economy. What does the member think of this?
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek, a brief answer, please.
Thank you very much to
choked
my
on
colleague
water
for
there.
his best wishes, but also for his question. Certainly, we recognize the value of our lumber, the value of minerals, and all of the very sacred items we have in Canada that help to keep our country strong and open more opportunities for all of our businesses as we move forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader, and I will have to interrupt him shortly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to rise today to speak to this concurrence motion. It appears as though we will end this parliamentary session the same way that we started it, with Conservative gimmicks and antics. For those that are just tuning in, today the Conservatives moved a concurrence motion that had been sitting on the table for quite a while, and then proceeded to put a number of amendments into that. The unfortunate reality for Conservatives is that all of those amendments that they put in there have dates on them in early January, but unfortunately we won't even get to vote on this until the House resumes in late January. So I guess you can chalk this one up as a loss for the Conservatives in that they weren't successful in their antics today. But, you know, I found it very interesting, and the member from Burnaby made a comment earlier when he said, wow, Conservatives put forward this concurrence motion, yet none of them want to talk about it. We had 2 Conservative members get up to speak to this motion, and the first member from Caledon took all of his time congratulating the new Tamara Jansen. Clap. Yeah. So, anybody else, Madam Speaker? Anybody else want to? Order.
Canada must be terrible, Mark.
One would hope that MPs would actually be behaving themselves. You know, Christmas is coming, and I'm sure that Santa has been taking note about all of the disorder here in the House, and he's going to save himself a lot of trips this year. The Honourable Member, Deputy Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy to go out the same way that I came in September, which is Conservatives heckling me. I'm happy to leave for the break on the same terms. But just for those in the gallery, and perhaps those who are watching this right now, all of those cheers that you just heard from Conservatives were in support of a former colleague who used to sit in this House. And do you know what that colleague said during a debate on conversion therapy, Madam Speaker? This is what she said in response to the member from asking the member from Don Valley West a question about conversion therapy after his debate. She quoted scripture, and she said, "Woe to you, teachers of law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean." That, ladies and gentlemen, is the caliber of candidate that the Conservative Party of Canada puts up today. That is who is put on the ticket for the Conservatives. So for those who might wonder about what a Conservative future government could look like for the LGBTQ community, you need look no further than the results of last night's election. I was trying to ask the member from Burnaby a question earlier, specifically about what would happen in his caucus if one of their MPs had done that. I can tell you that if a member of the Liberal Party had made a comment like that and it wasn't immediately retracted.
Of order, the Honourable Member Selkirk Interlake Eastman, and I hope that members will be quiet, because I know that the Honourable Parliamentary Deputy Government House Leader can speak quite loudly, but I'm having a hard time hearing him because of the disorder. So the Honourable Member Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Madam Speaker, you know, the tone of the member from Kingston and the Islands, as he's quoting scripture, is nothing more than anti-Christian bigotry.
So this is actually a point of debate. It's not a point of order. The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay is also rising on a point of order.
Well, Madam Speaker, as someone who is an altar boy, I find it very offensive that people use witch burners as examples of what Christians should be.
Are not points of orders, they are points of debates. The Honourable Deputy Government House Leader has 1 minute before I interrupt him.
And so, Madam Speaker, all I was saying is that if somebody in this party had said that in the Liberal Party, I'm sure the NDP and most likely the Bloc Québécois too, they not only would not be allowed to run in a future election under our banner, but they would probably be immediately removed from caucus. Not the Conservatives, though, Madam Speaker. They embrace individuals who teach, preach, and participate in the action of conversion therapy, and they have no problem with absolutely going after a marginalized community, a community that needs the support of Canadians, a community such as the LGBTQ community that this side of the House will always stand with.
I thought it was LGBTQ plus TIA
The honourable
something.
member just ended his speech before I interrupted him, so
think he
he will
forgot
now
the
have
extra
5
Q and
minutes of
plus an
questions
A
and
and-
comments the next time this matter is
I don't know, I
before
can't
the
keep up.
House. Il est de mon devoir d'interrompre maintenant les délibérations sur la motion.
It's my duty to now interrupt debate,
Here's Fergus.
and the division will be deferred. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone and wish them happy holidays.
Great holiday season and be safe. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. The honourable member for Nepean.
Madam Speaker, I stand today to advocate for fairness, unity and recognition. Christianity, embraced by millions of Canadians, has shaped the moral and cultural fabric of our great nation. Many of Canada's foundational values, institutions and traditions reflect Christian principles. We have months dedicated to Sikh, Islamic, Jewish and Hindu heritages, but there is no such recognition for the Christian faith. December, a month already steeped in Christian traditions of hope and giving, is the perfect time to honor this legacy. Let us celebrate the values, contribution and diversity Christianity has brought to Canada and to the mankind. I urge the government to designate December as Christian Heritage Month. I wish everyone Merry Christmas and a very happy, healthy and prosperous New Year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
He sounds sick.
With Christmas, Christians celebrate the hope and love that God provides through the birth of his Son, Jesus Christ, who lived, died, and rose again so that we can choose his free gift of eternal life beginning right here on earth. When I was accused of allowing my Christian faith to impact how I engage in this place, my response was, everyone in this place has faith. The difference between us is where and in whom we put that faith. Secularism seeks to conduct human affairs without religious involvement, expunging the values and morals of those who believe in God from the public square. This is contrary to the intent of the term separation of church and state. On January 1, 1802, Thomas Jefferson penned a letter assuring a specific church community that it is the church that is protected from state control under the First Amendment. In Canada, our Bill of Rights and Charter of Rights and Freedoms protect the church from state interference. Wherever you choose to place your faith, I wish you a heart full of thankfulness and wonderful memories with family and friends during this Christmas season.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Speaker, today is the last parliament sitting day of the year. Federal investment are laying the foundation for a healthy and sustainable community in Brampton South. That includes over $26.2 million for energy-efficient retrofit and the creation of a youth hub at the Susan Fennell Sportplex. Millions of dollars have been committed to develop and enhance public transit, parks and fitness centers across the riding. We recently marked 1 year of the Canada Dental Care Plan. Already more than 3 million Canadians have been approved for coverage, including nearly 5,000 from Brampton South, Mr. Speaker. Pharmacare is going to help 3.7 million Canadians living with the diabetes get free medication, and upcoming device fund will help them get across to the equipment they need. I'm truly proud of the work we did in 2024 for Canadians. With that, I would like to wish everyone in Brampton and across Canada happy holidays and happy New Year 2025. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Drummond.
Greg sounds sick.
Mr.
Sounds like
Speaker,
he's got a
this
cold.
lunchtime, Drummondville's finest dinner of the year took place. A hearty traditional Christmas meal offered to Table Populaire regulars by the team at the legendary Le Roi Giuseppe restaurant, where, as we all know, poutine was invented. This is the third year Laurent Proulx and Léonie Nadeau have invited local politicians and business people to lend a hand to their generous initiative by becoming waiters for a day. It's hard to express how special this moment is, not only for those who are being spoiled, and you'll understand that these people don't usually have it very easy, but also for those who come together to offer a moment of happiness to their less fortunate fellow citizens. A total of 120 meals were served at lunchtime, 120 meals that brought a smile to the face, a light to the eyes, or a ray of sunshine to the heart of our world. Thank you, Laurent and Léonie, for showcasing the crucial mission of the Table Populaire through your outpouring of generosity, which shows that in Drummond we've got heart. We have a heart, and it's in the right place.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as the holiday season approaches,
Greg is sick.
I want to share my holiday greeting and gratitude to my constituents of Richmond Centre. This holiday season in Richmond, we celebrate the diversity and the richness of our shared culture, where Canadians from all backgrounds come together to share this holiday joy with one another. As we celebrate the holidays, let us reflect on the importance of family, compassion, and the connection that unite us all. This year's holiday season is extra special for Canadians. With a GST tax break for the holiday, we are helping everyone to focus on what matters most, spending time with families and friends. To my constituents of Richmond Centre and all Canadians, I extend my warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year. May this holiday season bring peace, hope, and happiness to you and everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Montmagny, Lilley, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker.
I usually don't mute to say anything, but you know what's good about Greg being sick is he's not going to want to talk. And you know how Greg loves to put himself on camera and talk and colleagues. So we're probably not going to hear much from Greg today just because he's sick.
Through her remarkable commitment to Brian Mulroney's progressive Conservative government. She held key roles, including Minister of External Relations and International Development and Minister responsible for La Francophonie. Throughout her career, Monique Vézina was a true pioneer. She was deeply devoted to improving the living conditions of women and seniors while paving the way for many women in politics. And her legacy goes far beyond her political achievements. She also contributed to the social and cultural development of her native region, the Lower St. Lawrence, inspiring generations to come with her dedication and vision. Our thoughts are with her family, friends, loved ones, and all those who had the chance to meet her and witness her leadership. A great lady has left us, but her influence and memory will remain with us forever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, as we come to end of another session, I am delighted to wish neighbours in my riding of Mississauga, Erin Mills, and all Canadians a very happy holiday season. This is a time for reflection, gratitude, and to celebrate the values that unite us in kindness, hope, and the spirit of generosity. We also recognize that for many, this time of year can be challenging, and it's crucial that we come together to support one another. I want to express my sincere thanks to my incredible team whose hard work and commitment continue to make a positive impact in our community. We've made progress this year, and we're ready to work even harder in the new year to support the people of Mississauga, Erin Mills, and all Canadians. To members in this House and...
I'm going to interrupt the honourable member because unfortunately her camera shot was interrupted. I'm going to invite the honourable member...
No, it's okay. Nobody cares about
the honourable member
anyway.
to start from the top for her statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we come to the end of another session, I am delighted to wish neighbours in my riding of Mississauga, Erin Mills, and all Canadians a very happy holiday season. This is a time for reflection, gratitude, and to celebrate the values that unite us in kindness, hope, and the spirit of generosity. We also recognize that for many, this time of year can be challenging, and it's crucial that we come together to support one another. I want to express my sincere thanks to my incredible team whose hard work and commitment continue to make a positive impact in our community. We have made progress this year, and we're ready to work even harder in the new year to support the people of Mississauga, Erin Mills, and all Canadians. To members in the House and to all Canadians, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all the joy for the season. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, Donnie, thank you so much for the Super Chats. And Humble Tracker, thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships. Really appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to pay tribute to His Eminence Cardinal Francis Leo of the Archdiocese of Toronto, who was recently elevated by Pope Francis to the College of Cardinals in the Vatican. Born as an Italian-Canadian in Montreal, Cardinal Leo's vocational service has been rooted in compassion, in love, and inclusion. His advocacy for truth and reconciliation, the LGBTQ+ community, and the vulnerable has been a force for good within the Church. Cardinal Leo is also a champion for education, including the integration of Indigenous history within educational programs across Catholic institutions. This represents a hopeful direction for the Catholic Church to foster mutual trust and healing. When Cardinal Leo heard about his elevation to the college, he said his phone lit up like a Christmas tree. It may have been an early gift from the Pope, but the true present is Cardinal Leo's service to his community. May his tenure inspire hope, love, renewal within the Church and beyond. Auguri e buon Natale.
Bravo. The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by congratulating Tamara Jensen on her by-election victory last night. The people of Cloverdale Langley City have sent a powerful message to this Prime Minister and his partner, the leader of the NDP. The only question we must ask, are they listening? After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, housing prices and rents have doubled. People struggle to afford food and heating. The Prime Minister has lost control of the border, immigration, and now the finances. Following his former Finance Minister's departure, this Prime Minister hobbles along only with the support of his former babysitter for adult supervision. Recently in Halifax, the Prime Minister stated, "The moment when Canadians actually get to make the choice about the kind of country we are and the kind of solutions we are going to put forward in the coming years." Last night, the people spoke clearly. They rejected a government that denies citizens their democratic right to choose who can best lead us through these times of turmoil. Mr. Speaker, Canadians need and deserve a carbon tax election. I'm calling on the NDP leader to stop his shameful propping up of this Prime Minister who is way past his best before date. We need an election now.
Yeah! Humble Tracker with the 20 bomb after the 10, man. Thank you so much. Crazy, you're on fire, man. Merry Christmas.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Scarborough, Agincourt.
Last week, I was honored to host Christmas on the Hill. We welcome constituents with heartfelt personal reflections and joyous music from the All Nations Full Gospel Church Ottawa Choir. We shared the warmth of the Christmas spirit, spoke about the importance of caring for others, and celebrated the birth of Jesus. I also had the opportunity to formally introduce my motion M171 to designate December as Canadian Christian Month. I want to wish my fellow parliamentarians and Canadians from coast to coast, especially residents of my riding of Scarborough Agincourt, the happiest of holidays. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and a very, very Merry Christmas.
Hey. The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
It's a week before Christmas, and all through this House, MPs dream of returning to home, hearth, and spouse. Our stockings are hung by our chimneys with care. But what of the homeless? Who put them out there? There's fingers to point, random people to blame. But mostly I think of one person I'd name, and that's Rideau Cottage's middle-aged Swiftie, who through taxes, inflation, and budgets unthrifty, has crushed housing starts and caused rents to double. Perhaps in the end, he's one source of our trouble. His modest proposal to ease Canada's pain reads like Jonathan Smith, no more tax on champagne. But what if instead we stopped taxing new houses? Might that build more homes for our kids and their spouses? If housing officials weren't paid to say no, would that cause the supply of housing to grow? And if that can be true, then of hope there's a token, and that Canada soon will be much less broken.
Yeah! Pretty good.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, there's only one person keeping the Prime Minister in power, and that's the leader of the NDP. Yep. The sellout leader of the NDP is not concerned about Canadians. He's concerned only about keeping the Liberals in power long enough so that he qualifies for his pension. The Liberal NDP coalition has doubled housing prices, doubled rent, and driven up the cost of groceries. Yet the NDP continues to support the carbon tax, voting for it over 24 times. And the costly coalition plans to quadruple the tax, further driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. Canadians who once gave to food banks are now lining up at those same food banks in order just to get by. Liberal MPs and Liberal cabinet ministers have stated they have no confidence in the Prime Minister. The Conservatives and the Bloc have no confidence in the Prime Minister. So who does? The leader of the NDP, counting down the days to secure his pension. The NDP should grant Canadians their Christmas gift, grant us a carbon tax election.
You're here. You gotta fix your tie, though, Kelly.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On November 30th, our government signed the first ever modern treaty with the Métis government, the Manitoba Métis Federation. It was a historic day of celebration, reflection, and progress, a day that honored Louis Riel and all he fought and gave his life for. This achievement would not have been possible without the exceptional leadership of President David Chartrand, the greatest Métis leader since Riel. Today, we acknowledge the pivotal role of the Red River Métis in bringing the province of Manitoba into confederation. Today, we recognize the rights and self-government of the Red River Métis Nation, as well as affirm our commitment to reconciliation and collaboration. Working together, this agreement demonstrates the power of partnership, benefiting everything from housing to healthcare to cultural preservation. Finally, I want to acknowledge Canada's Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and the Minister of Northern Affairs who worked tirelessly to move this treaty forward, marking a victory for the Red River Métis Nation, for Manitoba, and for Canada. Merci. Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, as this year comes to a close, I want to take a moment and send my warmest wishes to everyone in Edmonton, Strathcona, and across Canada this holiday season. As we wrap up 2024, a year that was full of challenges, I want to celebrate the amazing people of Edmonton, Strathcona. Our community is full of people who volunteer, who support one another, who work together to make our community stronger. Each of you make Edmonton, Strathcona special, vibrant, resilient, and I am so, so grateful for all that you do. The holidays are a time to rest, reconnect, and recharge, so whether you're celebrating with family, sharing laughter with friends, spending time with your neighbors, or just taking a moment to breathe, I hope that this season brings you joy, warmth, and some well-deserved holiday cheer. Let's make 2025 a brighter, fairer, and kinder year in our community together. From my family to yours, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Blessed Kwanzaa, and a very Happy New Year. Stay warm, stay safe, and we'll see you all in 2025.
Wow, Liberal bench is empty.
Order, please. The honourable member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, it's with great sadness that I rise today to acknowledge the sudden passing of Darlie Pierre-Louis, a town councillor in Mascouche. The whole community is mourning the loss of this kind-hearted lady who went through life with a smile and an infectious joie de vivre. Committed and involved in humanitarian causes, Darlie made the difference in people's lives. I knew her when she was my student, and she's always been the same: intense, a good listener, and a natural, positive leader. She was seen as a leader in occupational rehabilitation and the social economy in Lanaudière, and distinguished herself as CEO of the Job Access Buffet. A caring person, she looked after her community and even more so her family. Her husband, Carlo, and their 3 children, to whom I offer my most sincere condolences. Rest in peace, Darlie. We'll never forget you.
The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
The Prime Minister's debt is out of control, and he set up the Finance Minister to take the blame. Just last Tuesday, this fake feminist Prime Minister boasted about appointing Canada's first female Finance Minister. Then on Friday, he fired her. But first, he expected her to deliver Mark Carney's fall economic statement. But why? Because the Old Boys Club crashed through their $40 billion guardrail, ballooning the deficit to $62 billion. This recklessness threatens our fiscal stability just as we face a possible trade war. Even the now former finance minister warned that we need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. Instead, Canadians are now paying $53.7 billion to service the debt. Because after 9 years of this Prime Minister's economic vandalism, it's Canadians who are the ones who always have to pay the price.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, I love this time of year. As a child, I have fond memories of tobogganing down my local park in downtown Toronto, eagerly counting down the days to Christmas. It's a magical time of the year with caroling, gift-giving, and gatherings where we share food and drink with those we love. It's also time to reflect and be thankful. I want to thank all the organizations who are on the front lines and work so hard to support our communities right across our country. Thank you. I want to thank the residents of my constituency of Davenport and my team and family for their ongoing love and support. Thank you. And I'm thankful most of all for this amazing country that we are all blessed to call our home. Thankful for our freedom, our care for each other, and our hopes and dreams for our future. To all my colleagues and all those in this house, wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and wishing for all peace and prosperity in the year to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Questions orales.
Questions orales.
Mess. Yesterday was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster. The finance minister resigns, the prime minister hides all day and then has to beg his MPs not to fire him. But the worst news, buried underneath it all, was a devastating gut punch to Canadian taxpayers. A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the Opposition House Leader for his heartfelt congratulations on my new role. I want to tell him, Mr. Speaker, and all Canadians, that our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio, the best in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
Does anybody else think that's weird? Minister of Finance and then LeBlanc's name after?
The new finance minister for being the fourth finance minister in a 24-hour period. But it's the same old talking points. What they did yesterday was smash through that $40 billion guardrail. What does that mean? It now means that Canadians have to pay back all that money with interest, and 43 cents of every dollar you earn now has to go to pay the tax burden. More money to bankers and bondholders. In fact, the government's now spending more on the interest on that debt than on health care. But the Prime Minister doesn't care. He doesn't worry about where the money comes from. He's never had to worry about that. So why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to be focused on their economic concerns. They expect their government to be focused on the real threat that 25% tariffs across the board would mean to the Canadian economy. That's the work that our government's doing. I can report, Mr. Speaker, I had an encouraging preliminary conversation with the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday, with the Border Czar, with Mr. Homan. We look forward to working with the incoming administration on border security, something that the Fall Economic Statement generously supported yesterday. This is the work Canadians expect us to be focused on, and we're looking forward to doing that work.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Yeah, they were so proud of that fall budget that they tabled it in the House and then ran and hid for the rest of the day. But let's recap. The Prime Minister announced $250 checks and then had to cancel them. He announced a 2-month GST tax trick that businesses say they want to implement, and the Prime Minister now says is optional. A broken immigration system, Parliament seized with a $400 million corruption scandal, all the while 2 million food bank visits, doubled housing costs, record high consumer debt, the dollar below 70 cents, and the Prime Minister raising prices by quadrupling the carbon tax. Yes. Again, why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, we're proud of the fiscal and economic record of this government. This is a record, Mr. Speaker, of supporting Canadians through the pandemic. This is a record of investing in entrepreneurship and innovation. This is a record in providing, for example, Canadians with $10 a day childcare, historic investments to speak to not only affordability issues, but growing the economy in a sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, this is work we're proud to continue to do for Canadians, and we find it unfortunate that it's the opposition that's trying to ground this House of Commons into chaos.
That's right. Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg. Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he continues to cling to power. He and his top economic advisor, Mark Carney, forced the former Finance Minister to blow past her already out-of-control $40 billion fiscal guardrail, which was already out of control, as I said, and forced her to run a whopping $62 billion deficit. This Prime Minister has added more to the national debt than all Prime Ministers before him combined. This profligate spending contributes to inflation. People are suffering. When will he call an election? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement was tabled in the House of Commons yesterday. It is an economic statement which talks about economic growth and supporting Canadians through difficult times with a high cost of living. The economic statement also discusses our responsibility to use taxpayer money and responsibly, to spend it responsibly. And, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what we will continue to do, all while keeping an eye on exactly what support Canadians need from their national government. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. How can we believe the new Finance Minister? How can we have confidence in what he is saying when yesterday he wasn't even able to answer a journalist's question? What is the national debt of Canada? Now, the former Finance Minister said in her letter yesterday, and this is very important, I quote, "We need to keep our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves that we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment," unquote. That was her message, the message of the former Finance Minister to the Prime Minister, who never listens to anyone. Call an election now.
Yeah, this translator is really good.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, our colleague has mentioned the government's deficit, but he knows that our debt to GDP ratio is declining, and we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio of all G7 countries. My colleague also knows that this government will support Canadians through difficult times. We've helped with $10 a day daycare. We've helped with the dental care program. Conservatives, in fact, voted against all of these programs. This is the time to support Canadians. We will continue to do so, and we will do so responsibly, as always. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I do congratulate the new Minister of Finance on his appointment. That said, there have been crises shaking this government for a long time, just crisis after crisis. Now there is a bad economic statement. We have a huge deficit. We also have money that the government should not have given out, that it cannot recoup. Now we need to be strong in negotiating with the United States in the context of a significant political and economic crisis. How can this government still think it has the authority and legitimacy to do so? The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Bloc Québécois leader for his congratulations. Our government is legitimate because our government has the confidence of the House of Commons. The House gave the government its confidence several times last week. As the Bloc Québécois leader said, we are still prioritizing supporting Canadians through tough times. We are also focusing on working with the Trump administration, which will come into office in January. We will work with them to reduce or even eliminate the threat of tariffs. We will protect our borders and we will ensure that our economy succeeds and thrives. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The government does not have the confidence of this House. It does not enjoy the confidence of the House. It enjoys the NDP's weakness. That said, if the government feels legitimate in negotiating on Canada's behalf in a potentially very dire crisis for Canada, then why doesn't the government seek the support and confidence of Canadians with this leader or with another? In January, that can happen in January. They need the support of Canadians. And if they don't have it, then bye-bye. The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, once again, Canadians expect that their federal government, working, of course, with provincial governments, work hard to protect the economy from the threat of tariffs. That's exactly what we have done since the dinner we had with President Trump in Florida. I must inform colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that I had some very encouraging and positive exchanges with Mr. Leitnik, Secretary of Commerce. Yesterday, as I said, we spoke with Mr. Holman, who is responsible for the borders. They're very open-minded, and I find it very positive. We will continue this good work.
Thank you so much, Savage, for the 25. Massive super chat. Really appreciate you.
In protecting his own job than he is in protecting Canadians against a threat.
I'm going to ask the honourable members, in particular the honourable member from Miramichi-Grand Lake and the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to not take their voices. I'm going to invite the honourable member from Burnaby South to start his question again.
People are right to be angry. They've got a Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump. We've got a Prime Minister who's failed to defend workers from rich CEOs that the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The Prime Minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit.
You're not taking his place. It's going to be Pierre, buddy.
Order, please.
Oh, Gould's getting some screen time now.
The honourable minister, rather, and leader of the government in the House of Commons.
There she is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House voted in confidence of this government just last week on multiple occasions. Mr. Speaker, we have important work to do on behalf of Canadians. We have a very important relationship to manage with the United States at a pivotal time, Mr. Speaker, and that is exactly what this government is focused on doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
On protecting CEOs to the harm of workers. The
Prime Minister is working harder to defend his own job than to defend Canadians from Donald Trump's threats. The Prime Minister failed to defend workers from CEOs who are taking all the money. This Prime Minister needs to protect workers, not CEOs. The Prime Minister has failed. Will he resign? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader knows full well that last week we earned the confidence of this House on several occasions. Our government always works to protect Canadians, Canadian jobs, and the Canadian economy. Now, we're focused on that, and we are focused on properly managing our relations with the United States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yesterday, the fall economic statement confirmed what former finance minister, the budget officer, and the Globe and Mail already told us, that this weak and now wounded prime minister hijacked the statement to drive Canada through the fiscal guardrail and over a cliff. $62 billion in overspending. That's 50% higher than their own target set just months ago. They told us over and over again that the deficit wouldn't exceed $40 billion. Simple question. Why did they mislead Canadians again?
Yeah, way to go, Melissa.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, far from misleading Canadians, the government thinks it's important to be transparent in terms of the fiscal picture of the government. That's why, Mr. Speaker, based on legal advice and accounting practices, the government booked contingent liabilities that increase the initial debt, a deficit projection to the level that my colleague referred to. Mr. Speaker, this is about righting historical wrongs with Indigenous peoples, something the previous government, Conservative government, ignored. And, Mr. Speaker, we think the responsible thing to do is to be transparent with Canadians. That's exactly what we did.
Donnie, thank you for the super chat again.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, of the Liberal ministers that still remain, not a single one would stick around yesterday to even defend the statement. They dropped it here and then ran out the door. $62 billion of new debt and new inflationary spending for Canadians to pay on their grocery bills, on their home heating, and on everything else. That's equivalent to spending $1 every second for nearly 2,000 years. The Prime Minister has clearly lost control of his caucus. He's lost control of his cabinet. He's now lost control of spending. So when will he give Canadians the chance to weigh in and call a carbon tax election?
That's right. Way to go, Melissa.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. On the eve of Christmas, what we presented to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, it's no time for slogan. It's no time for smiles, Mr. Speaker. This is time for us to be serious. What the Minister of Finance presented yesterday was a fall economic statement which is focused on growth, investment in our workers, investment in our industry, and investment in Canada. Mr. Speaker, you know what? Because confident country invest in themselves, something that the Conservative could not understand. We'll stand for Canadians. We'll stand for Canada on this side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, who is in charge of the clattering train? The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, and now he's lost the confidence of his MPs and his cabinet. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself as he clings to power. Yesterday, the government posted a $62 billion deficit, blowing through the guardrails. The government is careening out of control. Things are in complete chaos. When will we get an election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative opposition is doing is they are focused on us while we are focused on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on ensuring that we are delivering affordability measures for Canadians at a difficult time. We are focused on ensuring that we have a strong relationship with our most important trading partner, the United States. That is what this government is squarely focused on, Canadians, protecting the Canadian economy and protecting Canadian jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the statement post a $62 billion deficit, It revised 2025 growth down, and it revised 2025 unemployment up. The Prime Minister has failed to recognize the gravity of the moment. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself. His government is in utter and complete chaos. So when will the Prime Minister realize that the end is here, that his government and this Parliament is dead, and call an election?
Hear, hear. Gotta love MP Chong.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have the lowest debt and deficit in the G7, Mr. Speaker, and in addition, in the fall economic statement, Canadians can see supports for affordable housing, supports for $10 a day childcare, supports for public servants who want early retirement, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, what do? We support Canadians as opposed to what they do, which is cut, cut, cut.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we do, of course, congratulate the new Finance Minister. Just 9 years ago, in 2015, he, the Prime Minister, and everyone on that side of the House, they were elected promising 3 small deficits, and then in 2019, a $0 deficit. Then, a few years later, he posts the worst deficit in Canadian history, $62 billion. How can he look people in the eye and tell them that everything's going well? Can he, the new minister, tell the Prime Minister that he needs to call an election to determine whether or not he deserves the confidence of Canadians?
Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the congratulations. Now, Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to you that we do not share his pessimism. We have a lot of confidence in the Canadian economy, in Canadian workers, and in the fall economic statement, which gave Canadians a lot of hope, especially as regards support to them during tough economic times. We've also announced very significant investments. I'm excited to talk more about them this afternoon. For instance, we are investing in our border to protect Canadians and also work with our American partners. We're here for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's Finance 101. A deficit is money that you don't have. $62 billion is money that we don't have. It's money that we're punting down the road to our children, grandchildren, and great-children who haven't even been born yet. They will have to pay for today's poor financial management. All Canadians know is that the Prime Minister is alone in his bubble. Canada has never before had a Prime Minister so narcissistic, selfish, and full of himself. The problem, though, is that all Canadians, even those who haven't even been born yet, are going to have to pay for his poor management. When will there be an election so we can elect a good, strong, Conservative government? The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to our colleague that we disagree with the idea of having a Conservative government which would cut and gut the programs that support Canadians.
Somebody
they
wake
voted
Mark Miller
against
up.
our $10 a day daycare program to help
sleeping.
Canadian families. They voted against the Canada Dental Plan. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect a responsible government. We're focused on supporting Canadians through economically, financially challenging times. This is what our government is doing. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Well, with a $62 billion deficit, we can all agree that it's no time to be offering election goodies. Yet, in yesterday's economic statement, 98% of the new money to combat the rising cost of living is the GST holiday. Worse still, this purely electoral measure represents almost everything the government is doing to tackle the cost of living between now and 2030. This 2-month tax break, which the former finance minister described as a costly political gimmick, well, this is the Liberals' long-term economic vision. If that's the long-term economic vision, do they understand now why Quebecers are calling for an election?
They got her. She's pretty good. She's good in committee.
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives have been talking about elections and only elections since December. We have been supporting Canadians and Quebecers since 2015. That's why, for example, we put forward the Canada Dental Care Plan. It helps 1 million Quebecers. It gives them dental insurance that most of them never had before. Unfortunately, both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois insist on being against the Canada Dental Care Plan. And in fact, the Conservative leader claims it doesn't even exist. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The Quebecers, in fact, never wanted the GST holiday. What's more, the GST holiday is downright harmful to our small and medium enterprises. Yet it's the only element of the economic update to deal with the rising cost of living. And it accounts for 98% of new spending. The Liberals are out of steam. They've run out of ideas, and they're running out of resources, human resources, after the resignation of the Finance Minister, who is joining 8 other Liberal ministers who are jumping ship. Quebecers deserve better than a government that's falling apart and crumbling before their very eyes. Will the Prime Minister finally call an election? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. I think it's very obvious that the Bloc Québécois is against cutting taxes. But had they read the fall economic statement, they would know that we've created over 330,000 jobs in Canada. Well-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canada has experienced the highest salary growth of all G7 countries. Canadians are bringing home paychecks that are 5% bigger, even after accounting for inflation, Mr. Speaker. We are making sure that Canadians' paychecks increase, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, there, Howard Stern.
I'm hearing a lot of noise. A lot of noise from the back of the room. I hope that not everyone will start talking without having been recognized by the chair. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Once upon a time, economic statements contained measures. Today, they just contain bad news. What a contrast between the enthusiasm of 2015 and the cynical electioneering deficits of 2024. What a contrast between the solidarity of 2015 and the ministers who are jumping ship one by one. What a contrast between the Prime Minister who was a superstar in 2015 and the Prime Minister who tonight will struggle to get people out for his Christmas party. Mr. Speaker, it's over. That's it. That's all. It's over. Will the Prime Minister call an election?
Actually, one thing I can agree with.
The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised to hear my colleague talk like that. In the fall economic statement, if he had in fact taken the time to read it, there are significant investments for Quebec in the statement. For example, artificial intelligence, which will be at the very heart of the 21st century economy. As you know, Montreal has the most startups of anywhere in Canada. And in the statement, there are investments for Quebec, for industries, for workers. Mr. Speaker, we expect each and every member of Parliament to celebrate Canada. It's time to celebrate Canada. Thank you.
Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his caucus, of his cabinet, and of Canadians. The Deputy Prime Minister resigned because the Prime Minister said that he had lost confidence in her. A minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister, and with his full confidence in making your decision, you made clear, I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was talking about how Americans have lost the ability for females to lead in that country. But the Prime Minister only uses females when it's useful for him. Isn't that right, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
No.
Honourable Member for
No
Calgary,
Liberals clap for that. No Liberals clap
Mr. Speaker,
for her.
the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, and Canadians. He blew through the $61.9 billion deficit over the $40 billion guardrails that he had set. The Finance Minister, she tried to warn him, and he fired her for trying to warn him. He offered her another position, and she refused. Why is it that this Prime Minister only has confidence in women until they question him.
Exactly. Wow. The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives keep bandying about the word feminism, but let's talk about tangible policies that are offered in the fall economic statement for women. $50 million to build more shelter spaces across this country, Mr. Speaker. $15 million for women's organizations whose goal it is to end gender-based violence, as well as permanent funding for the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund. This is what it looks like to have the backs of women. Conservatives know nothing about that.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs, of Canadians as he clings to power. Hours before she was set to release the fall economic statement, the former Finance Minister quit, saying, quote, "On Friday you told me you no longer want me to serve as your Finance Minister and offered me another position in cabinet," unquote. The fake feminist Prime Minister and the conflict of interest carbon tax carney forced the former Finance Minister to blow through the $40 billion guardrail with a massively irresponsible $62 billion deficit, making her take the blame. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call an election?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives want to talk about feminism, then let's look at some facts. Let's look at some policies that actually support women across this country. Policies like $10 a day childcare. Policies like the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, which was actually supported in our latest economic statement, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives, by the way, opposed every single one of these measures. On this side of the House, we will always support women. Who knows what's going on over there?
Who knows what's going on with your outfit? What the heck are you wearing?
The Honourable Member from Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs and Canadians as he clings to power. The former Finance Minister said, quote, "To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made clear that I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence and possess the authority that comes with it." It is clear that this fake feminist Prime Minister threw the former Finance Minister under the bus, just as he did with other women who previously stood up to him. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are distracting from the fact that the Bank of Canada has cut interest rates 5 times down to 3.25%. Yesterday, our government published the fall economic statement, and I'm happy to share, Mr. Speaker, that it is an investment of $189 million into the Black Entrepreneurship Program that has already helped 16,000 Black entrepreneurs across this country. We are going to be investing in digital adoption for small and medium-sized enterprises of $500 million. We're going to reduce red tape. And, Mr. Speaker, while we're shopping during the GST holiday, let's support local. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The caregivers pilot programs expired back in June. The minister promised caregivers permanent residence on arrival. 6 months later, no information, no application process has been released about this new pilot. Given the Liberals' about-face on regularization and scapegoating of migrants for their failures, caregivers are really concerned that their hard-fought promise of landed status on arrival will be forgotten. Will the minister deliver on this promise and open the pathway for applications by January 1st, 2025, or will this be another Liberal broken promise?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Mr. Speaker, caregivers are extremely important to this country and to the care that they provide to our most vulnerable. We are still tracking to launch this, and clearly this is a priority of the government. This is on track. We may have some modifications to make, but this is still a high priority of the government. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The Liberals' economic update failed to recognize the reality facing working Canadians. It failed to address the housing crisis. It failed to address the healthcare crisis. It failed to address the youth jobs crisis. Instead of fighting for Canadians, Liberals are fighting with themselves. And Conservatives only propose cuts that will hurt workers while big business gets tax breaks and handouts. Budgets reveal who governments are really working for. Why are Liberals, like Conservatives, working for CEOs while ignoring everyone else?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and that honourable member would know because we worked very well together to create a national pharmacare plan that's going to make sure that Canadians everywhere have access to the medication they need. And it builds upon a Canadian advantage that we need to maintain, an advantage that sees Canadians not only living longer, but living 6 years more in health than they do in the United States. The lifespan that we enjoy is every bit as important as every other measurement, and the advantage that we have in health cannot be lost. We must continue to drive forward and transform our health system from one based in illness to one based in prevention.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec announced a historic agreement on Churchill Falls, as well as an agreement to develop the Gull Island project and upgrade other hydroelectric assets. This deal has the potential to transform Newfoundland and Labrador, create tens of thousands of jobs, and sweeping economic spin-offs. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development inform Canadians how our government helped create the economic conditions to make this deal possible?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Speaker, after decades, Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec have signed an historic agreement that will have huge benefits for all. Our government is working towards a net zero electricity grid and provided Newfoundlanders and Labradorians with assistance on rate mitigation. That, along with the investment tax credits for net zero projects, help create the conditions for this agreement to make Newfoundland and Labrador an economic and energy powerhouse. I congratulate both premiers on this historic deal, and I can't wait to see the shovels in the ground.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his caucus, and all Canadians as he desperately clings to power. Yesterday, the Liberals dropped their fall economic statement and literally ran out of the House. A $62 billion deficit, missing their target by a whopping 55%. The end result? Canadians are now paying more on debt interest charges than on health care. When will this Prime Minister end the misery, call a carbon tax election, so Conservatives can finally fix what they have broken?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to inform the Justice critic that, in fact, in that fall economic statement, he would have seen a series of measures that address community safety in our communities across the country. He would have seen measures that crack down on auto theft. He would have seen stricter bail and sentencing provisions. He would have seen provisions in the sex offender registries to get tough on child sex predators. He would have seen securing our borders to provide confidence to our American counterparts, cracking down on money laundering and terrorist financing. These are all measures that we all have an interest in promoting, passing, and getting funded in this country to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
After 9 years of this Prime Minister's economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he has added more to the debt than all previous Prime Ministers combined. Now Canadians are paying more. Our national debt now sits at $1.24 trillion, an astronomical number that our future generations will have to deal with. Canada's promise of powerful paychecks, affordable housing, safe streets have all been shattered under the NDP Liberals. This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his caucus, the House, and Canadians. When will he call an immediate carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, that member is a former Crown Attorney. He knows, in terms of keeping communities safe, it starts with addressing the prolific amount of guns that are in our communities. What's in that fall economic statement? $597 million to take weapons off of our streets. What else is in there? Mr. Speaker, that member knows that organized criminality is a problem in Canada from coast to coast to coast. What we are doing with organized criminality is ensuring tougher penalties for financial crimes, cracking down on money laundering, and cracking down on terrorist financing. You get at the cause of the problem when you address the money flow. That's what we're doing in the fall economic statement. We wish we could have their support.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le Fjord.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and of Canadians. But despite all of that, he is obstinately clinging to power. After 9 years of economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he's accumulated more debt than all of his predecessors put together. Result, Canadians are now paying $53.7 billion in interest on the debt. That's more than they pay every year for health transfers, Mr. Speaker. I'll say it again, more than for health transfers. Can the Prime Minister set his ego aside, think about Canadians, and call an election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I would invite my colleague to read the fall economic statement, because if he were to do that, he would see that Canada is in a particularly good financial position compared to all of its G7 counterparts. They're expecting great economic growth next year. We've signed an agreement with the Government of Quebec for hundreds of millions of dollars to help the forestry sector in his region, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives hadn't said a word about that. When it's time to help Canadians, they are never present. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and of Canadians. As if the $40 billion guardrail wasn't enough, well, they've given us a fall economic statement with a deficit of $62 billion. So much for the guardrail. Canadians are paying more in interest on the debt than they're paying for health care. He is desperately clinging to power. Enough is enough. When's the election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More good news for Quebecers today with the publication of the Clean Electricity Strategy. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be invested in collaboration with Hydro-Quebec, with the Government of Quebec, and with businesses to develop the electric system that we'll need for the future to decarbonize our transit sector, to decarbonize industry and buildings. That's how we're going to build the economy and the jobs and the Canada of the 21st century. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix.
About 10 minutes.
Well, we don't need more than 30 seconds to tell you what the Liberals' record is. The Prime Minister just did one thing this fall, and that's buy time. He bought time by letting the Conservatives paralyze work in the House without ever trying to negotiate a way to get out of this impasse. He bought time with his vote-buying gimmicks. He bought time, and he's continuing to buy time today since his Finance Minister quit. And it doesn't matter what's going on, he buys time. But does he not realize that by doing nothing other than buying time, he's lost the respect of Quebecers? The Honourable... Order. The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. And as she knows very well, we won the confidence of this House several times in the last few weeks, but I would like to maybe mention to her some points in the fall economic statement that she maybe hasn't read yet, but if there's one element that she should be interested in, it's our support for culture, which is in the fall economic statement. Our support for tourism to bring more conventions back to Canada. And Mr. Speaker, we should be proud of the investments that we've made in culture. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, this session has been one session too many. The Liberals have monopolised attention, but not thanks to their work. They've refused to work for seniors and for farmers. They've refused to work to get rid of the religious exception. They've refused to work to guarantee Quebecers access to early requests for medical assistance in dying. Unfortunately, they have been focused on internal caucus fights. That's where their attention's been, and that's why the following question is on everybody's lips today. When are we going to get rid of this government that doesn't want to work for Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, I would just like to highlight that on this side of the House, we are working for Quebecers. On this side of the House, we negotiate with the Government of Quebec to make sure that all the investments that we do are good for Quebecers. I'll just give you a couple of examples. The dental care program, the child care benefit. In the fall economic statement, there are rental help because the federal government pays to help renters. There's also investments in AI, housing, and, Mr. Speaker, it's this government that has done the work.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
This week, Liberal Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he still clings to power. And yesterday, the economic statement from his phantom finance minister, carbon tax Carney, posted a $62 billion deficit, which is absolutely devastating for Canadians. And they tried to pin it on the finance minister, and she quit in protest. Canadians have had enough of these dirty Liberal backroom deals where carbon tax Carney gets all of the power but has none of the accountability. When will these Liberals call a carbon tax election? Because Canadians just can't trust them.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, rather than talking down Canada, let's stress the facts. Inflation has come down to 1.9%, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
We have the lowest debt and the lowest deficit in the G7. In the fall economic statement, we put forward numerous measures to support businesses and families in Canada, including $10 a day childcare, which is going to give rise to 300,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we believe in supporting Canadians while maintaining a prudent fiscal outlook, something the Conservatives could never claim to do. Vive le Canada!
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Just like the 9 years of failures of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister, and they showed it last night with the overwhelming majority election of Tamara Jansen in Cloverdale, Langley City. The phantom finance minister posted a $62 billion devastating deficit that Canadians are going to be paying for generations. These Liberals have absolutely lost control, and this flailing Prime Minister doesn't have the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, of Canadians. When's he going to call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the fall economic statement yesterday,
Prop? Are they yelling prop because of what's on his shirt? Yeah, I think that's what they're doing. I think they're yelling prop. Just button up your jacket. But yeah, I think that's the prop.
You made a very specific point.
Order.
I remember it.
It's important for all members to ensure that they, especially male members, there are particular rules in terms of dress that is in this place. I am not certain that the sweater is a trop, but I'll invite the Honourable Minister perhaps to button up his jacket.
today, Mr. Speaker, we actually celebrate the 125th anniversary of the Canada Forest Service, which is something that I think all parliamentarians should be able to support. Mr. Speaker, in the fall economic statement were investment tax credits related to electricity production. It is part of building an economy for the future that will create jobs and economic prosperity across this country. It will ensure affordability for consumers. It will ensure reliability of the grid. And today, I am very pleased to say we are launching Canada's first clean electricity strategy across the country and the clean electricity regulation. It is an important day for Canada.
What? It's an important day for Canada?
The honourable member for
sure?
Cypress Hills Grassland.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and Canadians as he is desperately clinging to power. He forced the Finance Minister to join the ghosts of ministers past in favour of Phantom Finance Minister Carbon Tax Carney because they thought that her massive deficit wasn't big enough. With all the chaos he has caused around him, the Prime Minister's own inner circle is abandoning him. He went to the Governor-General yesterday to appoint Carney's placeholder, but why didn't he go one step further and just call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, another element of the fall economic statement yesterday was the launch of the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. That will make Indigenous peoples partners in projects across this country. It is part of building an economy that is inclusive and prosperous on a go-forward basis. On the other side of the House, we have a group that actually are a bunch of climate skeptics and climate deniers who have a plan for the economy that is based on the 1960s and looking backwards. On this side of the House, we are building a future for Canadians.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We live in
Liberal
an
asking a liberal
increasingly
question.
virtual world, and it's our job to ensure that this online space is safe for our children and all Canadians. That's why our government introduced a plan to do exactly that in the Online Harms Act. Unfortunately, the Conservatives are blocking this important legislation. Their obstruction means that children, women, and minority groups remain in danger. I'm appalled that the Conservatives won't put Canadians before partisan politics and work with us. Can the Minister of Justice explain the consequences we face by not passing the Online Harms Act? Thank you.
For the second time today, I'm going to ask the honourable members from the Grand Lake, Miramichi Grand Lake, and from Dufferin Caledon to please not take the floor unless the Speaker recognises them. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, last week in this place, the Conservatives blocked the child protection measures in the Online Harms Act from advancing. Worse still, the Conservatives have vowed that if we succeed in passing this legislation with the help of the Bloc and the NDP, they will actually reverse it at the earliest opportunity. What does this mean? That means if we get child sex abuse material off of the internet, if they took power, they would put it back on, Mr. Speaker. I wish I could make this up. That position is morally bankrupt. What I would say is that when you claim to care about victims of abuse, you need to stand up for victims of abuse. I would ask them to please do that.
I'd like to apologise to the honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake. Apparently he was not the person who had spoken out, not recognised by the term. The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost all control. Not only has the Prime Minister long ago lost the moral authority to govern, the Prime Minister has lost his ability to carry out the basic functions of governing with the shambolic spectacle of his Finance Minister resigning hours before she was scheduled to deliver the government's fall economic statement. This is a government in complete and utter chaos. When will the Prime Minister admit that he has lost all control and call a carbon tax election?
They don't know who's
the
going.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Sean Fraser. No?
Mr. Speaker, this may be the last
He's not the Minister of
opportunity
Housing
I have
anymore.
to answer a question in the House of Commons as a minister, and I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to everybody back home in my community and all members of this House on both sides of the aisle for an opportunity to engage in debate over the years and to put competing ideas on the table. When it comes to the way that caucuses should operate, I would remind my honourable colleague, as one of the people who's written to advocate for his community to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund, that he's now been banned by his own leader to continue to advocate on behalf of the good people of St. Albert, Edmonton. Mr. Speaker, it has been an honour to serve. I look forward to what the future may hold, and I want to say congratulations to a term well served by all colleagues.
Okay, so that was his last. Today's his last day as minister, and then in the new year he's no longer housing minister. Okay.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, lost the confidence of many of his MPs, and yesterday he lost the confidence of his Finance Minister. And no wonder, because after 9 years, this Prime Minister has broken everything. He's broken our borders, broken immigration, broken housing, and broken the budget.
Is that a baby?
So, when will the Prime Minister just stop? Stop breaking things, acknowledge that he doesn't have a mandate to continue to govern, and call a carbon tax election.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
The fall economic statement that we tabled yesterday, Mr. Speaker, is about growth, and it's about investing in our business community and in our economy, Mr. Speaker. The accelerated capital cost allowance will ensure that Canadian businesses stay on this side of the border, stay in Canada, that our creation of jobs will continue to increase. 330,000 jobs were created in the last year alone, and these are good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Even accounting for inflation, salaries have risen by 5%, the highest in the G7, Mr. Speaker. We're ensuring that Canadians bring home stronger paychecks and better jobs.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and of Canadians while desperately clinging to power. Yesterday, they found a random Liberal minister to table the disastrous fall economic statement after he fired his Finance Minister, who wouldn't sign off on smashing through her $40 billion fiscal guardrail, all in order to make room for phantom Finance Minister Mark Carney. Will the Prime Minister has lost control of his own government? Will he call a carbon tax election today?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the other side of the House, they're big on outreach, but they're really weak on facts. When we talk about Canadians, we want to show that we support them and invest in them. We have the lowest ratio of GDP to debt in the G7. Interest rates have gone down. We've been investing in Canadians. That's what you do as a government, Mr. Speaker. You invest in childcare. You invest in national school food programs. You invest in pharmacare because we invest and fight for Canadians. They will cut and they will talk Canadians down. On this side of the House, we are proud to fight for Canadians every single day.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, children in Canada need protection from online harm. The abuse that occurs online is endangering our kids, and it's time we act to prevent more families from being harmed. Our government has risen to this challenge, putting forward a plan to help parents and children. C-63, the Online Harms Act, creates safety measures that will save lives. The Conservatives are now the only roadblock to making the bill a reality in Canada. Mr. Speaker, the safety of our children should not be political. Can the Minister of Justice please discuss the importance of this critical legislation and why we need it passed now? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, this legislation will literally save children's lives. I find it very difficult to comprehend how the official opposition Conservatives can bear being the only party in this House obstructing the advancement of this legislation. I would share a question that was posed at committee by a mother whose child suffered horrendous abuse. She asked, quote, "What kind of person doesn't want to protect the future of our children or grandchildren?" End quote. Mr. Speaker, once again, I implore the official opposition to look beyond their self-interest and look at these parents and their children in the eye who need help. It's time we pass the Online Harms Act with unanimous consent.
Order. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a shortage of family doctors. It's an acute crisis that is getting more and more severe each and every day. The Liberals seem to be focused on their own internal problems while parents are looking to get care for their sick kids. The former Deputy Prime Minister said as much yesterday when she resigned. And the Conservatives, sadly, just want to cut health care, cut health services and destroy public health care. Given the emergency, what is the Liberal government's plan to address this shortage and make sure we have more family doctors now in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what we have done is signed agreements with every province and every territory. We saw in the Kai-High baseline data last year that nearly every jurisdiction in the country saw more doctors, more nurses. It's not enough, but provinces have to do their part and have to be responsible for this health transformation. But I'll tell you, there's something huge this Parliament can do, and that's pass Bill C-72, which is a connected care legislation. Just one example of allowing something like AI Scribe to be used in our system would create the equivalent of 1,000 new doctors in a very short period of time. Connected care can open up new avenues of care, and that's something this Parliament can do.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Well, thanks to this Prime Minister, our nation has become the laughing stock of the narcissist at Mar-a-Lago. Our country is facing an unprecedented level of political coercion, and Canadians deserve a strong and proud defence of our values and our jobs. We're not going to get that from the Liberal gong show or from the predatory and pusillanimous Conservatives who'd sell us out in a second. Our NDP leader called for a war room, bringing together Labour, business, leaders to defend Canada. So will the Liberals stop their squabbling? It's time to drop the gloves, go over the boards, and fight for our country instead of fighting amongst themselves.
Here. The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Yesterday, we
foreign
tabled the
interference.
full economic statement, and I think this is an area where the honourable member and I would agree. The Canada-U.S. relationship is extremely important, and in the fall economic statement, we are strengthening the regime to prohibit forced labor in our supply chains, something that is really important for workers in our country, and to strengthen this trade relationship with our allies in the United States. Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker.
And so brings to an end to question
Point of
period.
orders. Point of orders.
I recognize the honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé, who is rising on a point of order. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc Québécois wishes, before the House rises, to wish a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas to all Quebecers, to colleagues and their staff, to all the staff of the House of Commons, to the clerks, the analysts, the pages, the Parliamentary Protective Service, the welcoming team at the cafeteria, the custodial team, the Sergeant at Arms and their team, and, of course, the interpreters with whom we have a very privileged relationship. Merry Christmas, Mr. Speaker.
It's not really a point of order, but okay.
Well, that wasn't really a point of order, but I do thank the member for his best wishes, and I wish the same to him and to all members of the House of Commons.
Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Knowing that our House time is coming to an end, and we want to make sure that we look at this $1.2 trillion trade relationship with the Americans, we have a UC motion that, notwithstanding any standing order, special order.
So I did hear the honourable member say UC motion. I also heard many no's. So I'm afraid there is not a unanimous consent. But a point of order, the honourable member from Bay of Quinte.
Point of order. Just so I'm made clear that it was a Liberal member who said that they do not want to have emergency hearings on the $1.2 trillion.
Okay. You can't do that indirectly, but we can't do it directly. The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona is rising on her feet on a point of order.
Why, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I also, on behalf of the New Democratic Party of Canada, wanted to take a moment as the season is upon us and as we are ending 2024 to sincerely wish all of those who help us do our work a very, very happy holiday season. You know, the people that keep this place running are so integral to all of the work that all of us do, and every single one of them makes sure that MPs can serve their constituents day in and day out. I'd like to make sure that we thank the table for their dedicated service. Thank you all very much. I'd like to thank the amazing pages who help us in this place every single day. The security personnel who work so hard ensuring that the security of MPs and staff is taken. Thank you very much to our Sergeant at Arms. The food service and cafeteria staff who keep us fed and supplied with coffee all day long. We all know that we need that coffee some days more than others. The maintenance and client service personnel who keep our offices clean and running, and our IT staff who answer our call after call, ensuring our phones, apps, computers are running. And of course, I think we can all agree our amazing interpreters deserve our very, very heartfelt thank you. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of all New Democrats, I want to thank everyone and hope they have a wonderful holiday season. I'm sure they're very grateful that we are having a break.
Thank the honourable member, and once again, on behalf of the entire House administration, all its employees, thank all members for their kind wishes. The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn is rising.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you seek it, you shall find unanimous consent that, notwithstanding any standing.
So I did hear the request of unanimous consent, and I also did hear members saying no. Order. The honourable member for Nunavut.
First of all, I would just like to say very quickly happy holidays to my constituents in Nunavut, as well as all of Canada. In the generous spirit of this season, I hope that if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent to the following motion.
No.
I heard the honourable member request unanimous consent, and I also heard many members say no.
When you try to get UC for something, make sure you have the UC
to
prior.
inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing the House that the Senate has passed the following bill. Still C-79, an act for granting to His Majesty certain sums of money for the Federal Public Administration for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. J'ai l'honneur de faire savoir à la Chambre.
I have the honor of informing this House that the Senate has sent us a message to inform us that it passed the following bill, C-79, an act for the Public Federal Administration for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025.
I have the honor to inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing the House that the Senate has passed the following bill, to which the concurrence of the House is desired. Bill S-15, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Wild Animal and Plant Protection and Regulation of International and Interprovincial Trade Act. J'ai l'honneur.
I have the honor of informing the House that the Senate transmitted a message to the House to inform the House that it passed the following bill, to which consent is needed. S-15, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Wild Animal and Plant Protection Act, as well as regulation of international trade and interprovincial trade.
Ordre du jour.
Orders of the day, resuming debate on a privileged motion concerning the failure to produce documents pertaining to Sustainable Development Technology Canada, and on the sub-amendment of Mr. Kelly.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have to say it is such an honor to rise in this place on behalf of the constituents of Burlington. And I would like to say that to all of my colleagues, despite the fact that this was a rather unusual session of Parliament, it is a pleasure to be able to work with everyone on all sides of this House, mostly. But I would say that I know that everybody is ready to go into the holidays, and on behalf of the Liberal members of Parliament, I would like to extend my gratitude to everybody who works in the House of Commons, who serve us so well, who stay here on late nights and make sure that we are so well supported. And to them and their families, I wish a very happy holidays as well. I'd like to wish folks in Burlington and right across the country a very Merry Christmas and a very happy Hanukkah to all that are celebrating. I look forward to 2025 and all that the new year has to offer, and I want to wish all of my colleagues all of the best for the year ahead. And with that, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the order made on Wednesday, February 28, 2024, I move, seconded by the Minister of Labour and Seniors, that this House do now adjourn.
You want to adjourn early?
Ms. Gould, seconded by Mr. McKinnon, gets no. Move that
she
the
wants
House
to
do
adjourn
now
early.
If a member participating in person wishes that the motion to be carried or carried on division, or if a member of a recognized party participating in person wishes.
So we were just, I'm just going to pause that for a second. What just happened was, as you heard Greg say that they were about to go on debate for SDTC, because that's still holding up the House here. You can see it's a privileged sub-amendment to SDTC.
Scared, we do ask for a recorded division.
All in the members.
Yeah. So now they're going to vote on this. So usually what happens is the House is going for another like 4.5 hours. That's usually what happens. They stop at 7 p.m. And as you can see, most of the Liberals didn't even want to show up to work today. They get 5 weeks off starting the end of day today. And Gould just moved a motion to adjourn the House 4.5 hours early. This is a 30-minute vote? Holy crap. So they're not even wanting to work today. They've had half of a day of House, and now they're wanting to adjourn. The Liberals just literally do not want to work. Hell yeah, I think it will pass. Well, of course it's going to pass because they have Liberal NDP votes, but I mean, I don't think they should get off early. I don't think they should even get off on Tuesday. They should have to work the rest of the week. There's still stuff they can do in committee. There's still stuff that they can debate in the House. There's still motions that could be voted on. So, I mean, every other Canadian is working the rest of this week. Most people will work the rest of this week, and then that's it for the holidays. 30 minutes to let the Liberals escape? Pretty much. I don't know why it's a 30-minute vote. They just don't want to debate SDTC for 4 hours. Because that's what would be on the table.
Follows. Ms. Gould, seconded by Mr. McKinnon, gets no. Move that the House do now adjourn. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person.
They can do it quicker than half an hour.
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Because there's not that many people in the House, so most of it's going to be electronic.
Mr. Macaulay Cardigan. Mr. McKinnon gets no. Mr. McKinnon gets no. Mr. Fraser. Mr. Fraser. Ms. Chager. Ms. Chager. Mr. Casey. Mr. Casey. Miss Cara. Miss Cara. Miss Sahota. Miss Sahota. Mr. Anandasangri.
I'm just going to lower this volume a bit so you can hear me talk.
Mrs. Romanado. Mrs. Romanado. Miss Jones.
Because you can see who's standing. It's just going to be Liberals and NDP who are going to want to. Can we hear for a quick minute? I mean, yeah, sorry, I wasn't trying to. I mean, they're just calling out names. That's all. But essentially, as you were hearing me say there, they're just wanting to leave the House 4.5 hours early. As if they don't already get 5 weeks off. You know, they don't want to talk about anything else in the House now. They just want to go home.
Mr. Sarai.
So
Mr. Kellaway. Mr. Kellaway. Ms. Vandenbelt.
It's just ridiculous. Liberals did this all summer. If you guys were watching with me for committees, and the NDP did it as well. They wanted to adjourn every single committee early. They didn't want to work during the summer. They never want to work during constituency time. Well, it's mostly just vacation time, but they just any opportunity to get more time off, as if they don't already only have to work like half of the year. Like they get 3.5 months off in the summer. They get a week off for Thanksgiving. They get 5 weeks off for Christmas. They get a week off just for Remembrance Day. They get a whole week off for that. It's probably a few other holidays. I'm pretty sure they get 2 weeks for March break. Like, they get so much time off, and I get it. There's supposed to be, some of it's supposed to be constituency times, but I only really know of mostly Conservative MPs that will go back to their constituents and actually do work in the constituency offices. Yes, Matthew Green went around to all the committees. Yeah, exactly. I have clips of him in so many committees, just going from committee to committee to committee, just trying to get things to adjourn. So, oh, the Bloc want to leave too. So the Bloc are voting yes. So it's Bloc, NDP, and Liberal. So House is going to adjourn early. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. These guys just really don't want to work. Look, it's only the Conservatives that are like, no, we'll stay here an extra 4.5 hours, please. We got things to debate. We have work to do. Just check out their salaries on on the line. Well, I know what their salaries are. They start at $200K. They get extra stipend for being in committees, even if you're just an MP. So if you sit in committee, you get an extra stipend. I believe it's about $38,000. If you're a chair of a committee, I believe it's an extra $48,000. If you're a minister, you get an extra stipend for that as well, because ministers don't sit in committees. So usually the average, like, you know, John Brassard that just stood there, he's getting like $230, $240. They do pay 45% tax or whatever, but it's still a ridiculous salary. Now, the argument could be made that should we pay them more or less? And I think if you do pay them less, that there is more incentive for them for like Liberals engage in a lot of insider trading and a lot of corruption. So I think if you pay them less, that gives more incentive for one to do more corrupt acts and insider trading to get a bigger stipend. And I think at the end of the day, it's not about the money for a lot of these people. Like, they really are. You get a title for life usually. It's the honorable. And it's on your resume that you actually were a member of a government. So a lot of them just really like the title that comes with it. Oh, thank you, Virtual Grand. Appreciate the super chat. I'm going to give a quick shout out to everybody else that did the super chats today too. Donnie with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 super chats from Donnie today, man. Holy smokes. Gordon with the 10 gifted. Humble with the 30 gifted. Pokey with the super chat. Savage with the big 25 bomb. Really appreciate you. Virtual, Lori. Everybody really appreciate you guys being so generous during the holidays. Hey, the NDP are voting against. Oh, they did. They did vote against, actually. You're right. I was doing some shout-outs, but I think with Liberal Bloc, there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough votes. Let me double-check to see. Some of the NDP voted nay. Yeah, but I think Liberal Bloc has enough. But yeah, if they adjourn early, then we're going to be done. And I won't see you guys probably I won't live stream till the new year. And we might try to get something in between, like after Christmas and before New Year's. I might try to do just a pop-up stream. Tammy with the super chat. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys today, man. You guys have been extra generous today. Thank you so much. But yeah, if I don't see you guys for a live stream after Christmas or before New Year's, just something to kind of wrap up. I might just do kind of a wrap up, a call in thing, so you guys can call in and we can have some chats. We won't really be, there's no parliament to cover or anything like that, but I'll try to keep up with press conferences and scrums and things like that. So there'll be clips coming out on the channel as often as I can, but there just won't be any live streams likely, and until I can do like just a random one here or there. So it kind of makes me a little bit sad because I love I love the chats. I love live streaming with you guys. NDP are voting nay, as you can see. So I still don't think we're gonna have the the votes. I think Liberal Bloc has more votes. But yeah, I definitely won't see you guys before Christmas. Like, this is the last live stream we're doing till probably near the end of the year. So I hope everybody has a very good Christmas. Blessings to you and your family. And thank you guys for just an awesome year. It's been really good. I nearly pulled out my headset there. Yeah, it's just been awesome, guys. We've really kind of grown this community quite a bit, and it's been awesome, chilling with you guys. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Independents are voting no, too, so we might have the votes. I don't think so, though. Yeah, and I appreciate the mods, too. Chris, Suzanne, Data Sender, you guys always coming in and, modding the chat. Really appreciate the mods. Kind of helps me out a bit. Jagmeet Singh voting no. Okay. Jagmeet Singh's not even here. Auditor General is in again. There's actually a committee tomorrow? Oh, there is. Yo, Chris Johnson. Wow, that just came up. That wasn't supposed to be there. Okay, we'll cover that live tomorrow then. Okay, we'll be live tomorrow for that then. We'll cover that committee. I'm surprised they're actually getting that in there. You know what, Chris? I have a feeling that Liberals are going to move to adjourn that committee like right away. Because they're not going to want to work on Wednesday. They're going to be like, oh, the House isn't sitting. We can't do work. And they're going to try and adjourn that meeting. I bet you any money. We can cover it live tomorrow. We'll be there tomorrow for 11 a.m. So, okay, that'll be the last stream. That'll be the last stream, guys, for this week. It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. But, yeah, I have a feeling that's going to get adjourned right away. Let's see, 1 minute left. I have a feeling the House is going to adjourn now. I have a strong feeling we are adjourning. Minister LeBlanc is also about to speak with reporters. We can watch that for a minute afterwards. Possibly, but if not, it should be good. I like the Auditor General. She's usually pretty level-headed. Yeah, Chris Johnson is always good at checking up for committees. I appreciate the help, man. Because I always try to catch those, but I guess that one must have just come up recently, because I didn't see that earlier today when I checked it committees. They didn't have it scheduled. Watch it be 50-50 split. I believe then the Speaker has a ruling, and the Speaker's Liberal, so he'll just vote with the Liberals. Electronic votes are closed. Let's see. Are they adjourning early? Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be live tomorrow. We'll cover committee for a couple hours, and that's if it actually sustains. I have a feeling the Liberals will get in there. MP Khalid will be the first person to go, point of order. I'd like to move the motion to adjourn this meeting. Watch, it'll be Khalid. I'm telling you right now.
I wish to inform colleagues that the electronic voting period is over. If members were unable to vote due to technical difficulties, I would invite them to use the raise hand function or rise and indicate it to the chair. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to vote yay.
Mr. Hardy, yay pour.
No surprise there.
The honourable member from Barrie Innisfil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, well, the opposition would love the ability to vote twice, especially on matters of confidence. I want to point out to the chair that the member from Aurora Oak Ridge's Richmond Hill was not in her seat, but she was counted on the standing vote, and she also voted on the app as well. So I'm seeking clarity from the chair on that and whether, in fact, her vote would count. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Wait, I see that the honourable member from Aurora Oak Ridge's Richmond Hill is rising on her feet. The honourable member.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the member opposite is correct. Of course, I wouldn't vote twice. But when I went. Just relax, man. Mr. Speaker, if I could speak, I'm trying to address the concern that was raised. Thank you. And when I realized I wasn't in my seat for the beginning of the vote, and the opposition was calling out that my vote wouldn't count, I realized after I stood up that I shouldn't be doing that, so I went and used my app instead, assuming that because they would protest and say I couldn't vote, then I would have a vote. So thank you for pointing that out. I did vote.
I think it's very important. Order. Order. The Prime Minister needs some water. Order. I know colleagues are keen to move along. The honourable member from Winnipeg South is rising.
Mr. Speaker, I had trouble with my app, and I'd like to record my vote as yay.
Do good. Yay, pour.
Okay, so the recorded vote, I believe it'll adjourn. If I did the math correctly.
Thank the honourable member from Aurora Oak Ridge's Richmond Hill. The table had recorded your participation only once. The table will now compile the results of the vote.
Yeas pour 177, sans 77. Nays contre 140, sans 7.
I declare the motion carried.
Yeah, it carried. Carried by 37 votes. They're off early.
Colleagues,
4.5 hours early today.
I think the whips might want to hear this. This House stands adjourned until Monday, January 27, 2025 at 11 a.m. pursuant to Standing Orders 28.2 and 28.4, when it will resume consideration of the following privilege motion. Of the privilege motion. Pursuant to Standing Order 94, I wish to inform honourable members that private members' business will be suspended on that day. And to all members, may I wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and any religious holiday that you celebrate, and certainly a Happy New Year. Looking forward to seeing you in the new year.
Okay, House is adjourned. We're going to just quickly watch LeBlanc. LeBlanc is speaking right now to reporters about recent policy changes. Let's go ahead and tune into this. And then we're probably going to call it, guys. And we'll be live. Good catch on Chris Johnson. We'll be live tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then that'll be it for this week. So let's see. Do we have anything else that we can watch in the meantime while we wait for LeBlanc to walk his slow, drunk butt over here? Is there anything else that's happened recently? They get 5 weeks off right now. And they don't even want to work the rest of the day. They just adjourn to the House. Can't even finish out the last day, which is freaking the 17th. Like, come on, man. Another screw you to Canadians. Yep, correct. Let's see. Is there any other clips we got in the meantime? Won't be here for that tomorrow? That's okay. If you guys won't be here tomorrow, or if you want to take off, then Merry Christmas to you guys and Happy New Year. And hopefully we see each other right before New Year's. If not, then I'll see you next year. I need to check, maybe the news has something on that we can clip into for a sec.
Two types of cancer.
No. You know what? I might just clip this because I don't know how long LeBlanc's going to be. Sometimes they actually take like half an hour to get here. So I might just watch this myself and then I'll put this out on the channel as a clip so we don't have to watch this live. Because sometimes they'll... So will there be a vote today? No, the House just adjourned till next year. So the House doesn't sit again until January 27th. Really want to say thank you for being so quiet during the debates so people can hear and follow what's going on. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the kind words. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope to see you all tomorrow. But if not, we will chat and hang out again in the new year. Yes, correct. Enjoy your Christmas all. Hope you have a good break. Merry Christmas. Appreciate all the kind words, everybody. Yeah, I think we just call it here because I don't want to sit here and wait for him. So I'll just come back and clip this. After Freeland was there, another MP that resigned. I arrived late. Yes, Sean Fraser resigned as Housing Minister. Who won the vote? Liberals just won the vote with Bloc to adjourn the House early. So they should still be sitting for another 4.5 hours, but they're not. So, yeah, Tammy, Monique, Alan, Data Sender, Chris Johnson, Gordon Muir, all you guys, Blaze, Nancy, Sheba, Two Flip, Savage. I'm pretty sure I'm missing still more people, but trying to scroll up. Who else am I missing? There's David, Barry, Magic, Tracy, all you guys that constantly kept coming into the chats, and Johnny Guitar. Just appreciate you guys. Humble Tracker, if you're still around. Lori B, Wendy, Tammy, I think I said your name already. Goko Donnie, Pokey, Oogla, and everybody else that just keeps on coming into the chats and making this community great. Really appreciate you guys, man. Is there a vote tonight? No, that the House just adjourned. So that's it. That's all, man. I will go ahead and clip whatever he's going to say here so we don't have to sit here and wait for him to actually show up because he could be another half an hour. Maybe he's at the bar still pouring a drink. You know, LeBlanc likes to do that. So we will skedaddle. So cheers, guys. I will try to get a live stream in before the end of the year. And if you miss tomorrow's live stream and you miss that one, then those are the two for the bit of the last of the year. Then I will see you next year. And see you, Tracy, Alan, Gangastron. See a couple more names that I missed earlier. Sorry about that, guys. You know who you are if you keep on coming into the chats, and we've been at this for all year. Appreciate you guys. Steve Morrison, have yourself a Merry Christmas and all the best in the new year. Cheers, all the best. Thank you for the channel work. Appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for the kind words. So that's it. We'll call it here, and I'll get a clip out now, and see you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m., if you can make it. It'll be committee, and it should be pretty good. I have a feeling though it's going to adjourn right away. So see you guys. Happy holidays.